this is Marley. It's my little bubs. And today I was thinking that we could switch it up a little bit and we'll be working toward a peak transition of downward facing dog to crow. Now, if downward facing dog to crow transition is already in your practice, you're going to get a lot more strengthening work into this practice. You might also just start to pick up a few more like cue ideas for either teaching somebody else or adapting into your own practice and your own mindset. There are two props that I will suggest, or that we will definitely use, and then another two that I will suggest. So a hand towel, some sort of bath towel, or a yoga blanket or something. We'll definitely use that. And then if you have something like a block, like a yoga block that's about this wide, that's a great option. Or you can also use like a can of beans. It's about the same width as what a yoga block will be. We won't use it except for like one time for one specific thing. So if you don't have a block, you don't have a can of beans, you can also do it without anything at all. And then you can also use like blocks or any other props that you would normally use in your practice. Go ahead and have those around, have those available to you. We will get into some sort of a flow, but we're going to start out with activating through our core, connecting to our center, and that's really what is going to help us make this floating action of going from downward facing dog to crow and feeling that sort of like weightless levitation to the top of our mat. Our core is going to be everything in that, connecting to our center, having a little bit of strength and almost like lift, but it's an internal lift. It's not thinking about physically lifting up necessarily, but it's about lifting up and in. It's an internal lift. So to start, you're going to be laying down onto your back. You don't need any props with you. And extend your legs up to the ceiling. Now tilt the top of your sacrum down into the ground and you'll feel your sit bones move up towards your heels. You can do whatever activates your legs most through your feet. So I like to point my feet. That's where I point my arches and flex toes back. What that'll do is the pointing action is activating through the back chain of my body, and then the pointing, flexing back through the toes will also activate the top of my shins and the top of my legs. Top of your sacrum back down to the floor if it's moved already. Sit bones up to the ceiling. Now reach your arms up overhead. Notice in doing that if your rib cage starts to come up off of the floor or if your low back starts to move. We want to keep the top of the sacrum down, low back is down the entire time, and then the ribs start to draw down and in. Now already here you might start to notice a few little wobbles, a few little shakes. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Try to compact everything down in your core, together and down, together and down. Now inhale, press your feet up to the ceiling, tilt the top of your sacrum down even more, and on your exhale, pull your pelvic floor up towards your rib cage, draw your rib cage down towards your navel. Inhale, press your feet, lift your sit bones slightly. Exhale, draw your navel in, pull your pelvic floor up, and knit your lowest ribs down. Notice I'm shaking a little bit, even in my breath, you can hear it. Working through the entire core system. Hold it for 3, hold it for 2, hold it for 1. Bring your legs into your chest, give yourself a little rest there. Rock yourself side to side. So I call those pancake bellies. You're flattening yourself down, you're pressing up in like making a pancake. There's a certain amount of rising action to get the pancake nice and light, airy, and fluffy. But there's also an amount of condensing that's also going on. So you're drawing your navel in while you're pressing your feet up. What are the other opposite but equal actions going here? Now we're bringing our pelvic floor up while our ribs go down, and that's creating more contraction into our core system. Extend your legs up to the ceiling, extend your arms up overhead. Now can you think about pressing the tops of your hands down to the ground so that way your palms are up, tilt the top of your sacrum down in the same way. Now press your feet up, draw your navel in, close your lowest ribs down, draw your pelvic floor up. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, bring it all tighter, compact it more. Inhale, find the expansion, push out through your legs, press down through your arms. And exhale, draw in, squeeze in even more. You should be shaking at this point. Tap your sacrum down. One more breath in. Stay and press on your breath out all the way to the bottom of your exhale, so that way there's no breath left. And then hug your knees into your chest. Give yourself a nice little squeeze, a little rock side to side. Good job. Now we're going to take that same activation into our core, but move our torso, or not our torso, but our arms and our legs. I call these just tight balls because you're going to expand out and then exhale, make yourself into the tightest little ball. Notice how my chest comes up and my thighs come closer together. Inhale, extend out. Exhale, bring everything in. Inhale, extend out. Exhale, bring everything in. If you haven't joined already, go ahead. Keep breathing. Inhale out. Exhale in. Notice if your low back starts to come up when you go out, that means that you need to take your feet higher up. Keep your low back down. There is a range, there is a point at which your low back will naturally start to come up if your core is not working. When the deepest layer of your core is activated, your low back will stay down the entire time. So that's what we're working here. Inhale, extend out. Exhale, hug in, keep going. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hug in. Now place your hands onto your knees so that way you can give yourself a little bit of a pull. You're just going to extend your right arm and your right leg. Inhale, extend out. Exhale, bring your knee to your armpit so it's even closer in than your left thigh. If you can, try not to hold yourself up with your left leg, but make this left hand light. Inhale, extend out. Exhale, draw in. Inhale, extend out. Exhale, draw in. Keep going. 5, 4. That left hand is holding you steady, but not holding you up. 2. And knee to armpit, hold it, hold it, hold it. Now switch it over to the right. Inhale, extend long. Exhale, straighten your left arm and bring your left knee to your left armpit. Inhale, extend out. You know this part. Exhale, knee to armpit as close as you can. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Notice how there's a little lift at the very end to get your knee to your armpit. 3, 2, last one. Okay, lower down. That's a doozy. Now let's talk about crow pose. You know the shape of crow pose. You can stay laying down for a moment. You know the shape of crow pose. Now notice how my back is rounding. Feet are hugging together. Heels towards sit bones, so hamstring activation is working too. And then because my back is rounded, there's no way here that with my back flat, I would most likely get that same movement of my knee to my armpit. Now, if I round my back body by activating my core, using my lower abdominals to lift my hips up from the ground, then I'm coming into crow pose and a nice tight crow that's activated through my core more than relying on my arms to take care of things. So that's what we want to work here. Just to start, press your arms up and spread your fingers really wide, like the ceiling is your floor. Now press firm into your arms. Bring your knees as close as you can towards your armpits, but don't lift your hips up off the ground. Keep your low back down on the ground. Inhale here. Exhale, rock up, touch your knees to your armpits. Inhale, lower down. Exhale, knees to armpits. Inhale, lower down. Exhale, knees to armpits. You'll feel it pretty quick. Keep breathing. Keep going. Press into your arms. As soon as your arms start to get limp and loose, it's actually going to be harder to reach your armpits. Whereas as you press, and even my shoulder blades are off of the mat, because that's how much I'm pressing down into the ground. Same shape happening in my crow pose. And that's how you create the transition, the float from crow to inversions as well. Now, hug your knees into your chest, give yourself a nice tight squeeze. And this time, the action of downward facing dog to crow is from a longer stance. So our feet aren't right underneath us, but they're a little bit further away. So now, inhale on the way out, exhale on the way in, touch knees to armpits. Inhale on the way out, exhale knees to armpits. Now, lift your torso and see how much easier it is to get your knees to your armpits. Yay, keep going. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hug your knees in towards you. Relax your head, your shoulders, your neck. Give yourself a little rock side to side. And now start to rock up and down your spine a few times, creating a little bit of momentum, a little bit of massage. Rock all the way up and through. Downward facing dog. If you want to add your vinyasa in there, go for it. Pet out your feet a couple of times. Move your hips side to side. Spread your fingers really wide. Downward facing dog, I always call it taking inventory of your body. Notice what it's communicating to you today. Mine says your shoulders are a little tight and your hips are a little tight, but everything else is feeling pretty good. Full breath in. Exhale, bend your knees, gaze forward. Walk your feet in just a half effort. On your inhale, float forward, lengthen halfway. Same breath in. And exhale, fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Press through your feet, reach up, gaze up. Exhale, fold right back down to your mat. Inhale, long spine. Exhale, chaturanga, step or float, and move through your vinyasa in a way that works best for you. Inhale, heart up. And on your exhale, you press down, hips back, and high. Walk your feet in just a smidge. So when you go from downward facing dog to crow, it's much more helpful to do it from a shorter downward facing dog. If I'm trying to take all of my weight forward, my center of gravity has a lot further to go to bring my knees to my armpits. Now, if I step it into a shorter downward facing dog, my center of gravity is already here. The only thing lagging behind from this point are my legs. So when you're in a shorter downward facing dog, keep your hips high, lift your heels up, gazes forward, inhale. Exhale, just bend your knees, lift your hips, thighs to ribs. Inhale, float forward, lengthen halfway. And exhale, fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Reach up overhead. And exhale, fold right back down. Inhale, long spine. Exhale, chaturanga, step or float. Inhale, heart up. And exhale, hips back. Downward facing dog. Take your short stance. Press into your arms. Now gaze forward. Inhale, come forward so that way your shoulders stack right above your wrists. And then exhale, press back. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, press back. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, press back. Keep your hips the highest point the entire time. Keep going. Press into your arms. Draw your navel in. Now inhale, come forward. Exhale, hips high. Lift your heels. Inhale, float forward. Lengthen halfway. And exhale, fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Reach up overhead. And exhale, fold right back down to your mat. Inhale, long spine, lengthen. And exhale, chaturanga, step or float. Inhale, heart up, fill up. And exhale, press down, hips up. Downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward. Exhale, bend your knees, lift your hips. Inhale, float forward, lengthen halfway. And exhale, fold. Inhale, rise all the way up, reach up overhead. And exhale, fold right back down. One more round just like that. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, heart up. And exhale, hips back. Inhale, shift forward. Get your feet where you want them. Exhale, bend your knees, lift your heels. Inhale, float forward, lengthen halfway. And exhale, fold. Inhale, rise all the way up, reach up overhead. Heel to your feet to your outer hips distance apart. And then sit low, Malasana from here. Try to keep your spine really long. So there are a lot of similarities that we like to place between Malasana and crow pose. I think that personally there are a lot more similarities between Malasana and crow pose. When your feet are together, that's already like in crow. If you're doing crow without your feet together, I will say these two things. One, it's not necessarily completely wrong. Two, it's not going to help you in the future. Learn how to bring your feet, the ball mounds of your big toes, and your heels to touch in crow pose. Automatically what that does is activates the entire inner chain of your legs. When your adductors are completely engaged, that's going to help you lift your pelvic floor. And that lift into your pelvic floor while you draw your ribs down is what you're trying to reach in order to get the float, in order to get the levitation action. So from Malasana, the similarities are that you're bringing your armpits and your knees as close together as you can. Now, there is a crow pose where you have your back super straight. You have your spine super long, and each vertebrae is reaching up and out, and also your sit bones are reaching back and away. So that crow pose will keep the spine really, really long, and will keep thighs as close to ribs as we can throughout that. Now, one thing that I don't particularly love about that version of crow pose is that it makes it difficult to transition anywhere else. It's a great crow pose to transition to chaturanga, and it's a great crow pose to come forward into. But beyond that, making any other transitions, you have to be able to do crow pose with a rounding into your spine. Now, it's not just rounding for the sake of rounding your spine. That rounding actually happens from your lowest ribs coming down, your pelvic floor lifting up, the deepest layer of your core being engaged, and already look at the rounding that's in my spine compared to thinking really straight. Core really, really tight and engaged, thinking really straight. So this tight, engaged, rounding core, or crow, will get us a lot more mobility, movement, in order to find other actions of floating, pressing, future fun. So from Malasana, if you're comfortable here, you're going to come up just enough to heel toe your feet together. Coming into Malasana, your heels may come up off of the ground. You want to walk your hands forward. Try to keep your hands where they are as you move your heels back down. Now notice how my knees and my armpits are so close together. Squeeze. Squeeze in, and that'll get you stability where you are. Now if you're comfortable from there, you internally rotate to wrap your arm around and press the top of your hand down. Internally rotate, wrap around, and you keep wrapping yourself in, and back until you tuck your chin to your chest and you bring your third eye to your big toes. And you're in this beautiful, nice, tight little garland. And then from here, in order to come into crow, we actually want to just lift this whole shape up with us. Squeeze in our arches of feet together. Our feet are already touching in Malasana, and then from there we can lift up. Try a crow pose. Plant your hands down onto the ground. Walk your feet together if they're not already. Bring your knees as close into the backs of your armpits as you can, and then as you shift forward, maybe you're comfortable with lifting one foot off of the ground today. Awesome. Maybe you're comfortable with switching, as long as you have one foot floating toward the ground. Now that is just a fear tactic. You squeeze in arches of your feet, you say, I am strong, I can do this, and you bring a hamstring curl into it. From here, shoot back, chaturanga. You can step or float. Inhale, heart up. And exhale, hips back, downward facing dog. Step your right foot forward to a low lunge. Lower your back knee down. And inhale, bring your hands to your right knee. Now all of that rounding, contracting forward motion We need to get a little bit of stretch and opposition in there, just so that way we're evening out. If you're comfortable here, you can reach your arms up overhead, lengthen through your spine. If you're comfortable here, you can continue to bend into your right knee, press to your right heel, and squeeze your sit bones together. Take your right hand to your right hip, down to a block underneath your hip, or if you can, touch all the way down onto the ground. Sit forward and down into your front leg in order to reach down to the ground, and then turn your chest up and open underneath your left armpit. Reach your left fingers all the way up and over to the right. One more breath in. Stay for your breath out. Keep pressing your fingers over. Inhale, right arm up to meet your left. Exhale, plant both hands and straighten both legs. Now this is where your block, your little lift, it might come in hand. If your hamstrings are tight, what it often means is that there's some sort of either mechanical or mental block here. And so really rounding down and straining your muscle is not going to do a whole lot. Instead, if you can find a little bit of ease within the release, so rather than rounding down, reaching down, and working within a place in which your muscle is having to contract in order to hold, lift up a little bit so that way you can square your hips first. This already signals to your brain that you're stretching into your hamstring. When your hips are all catty-wonky here, you're not necessarily telling your brain I'm stretching the back of my leg, but maybe your brain is thinking, oh, I'm going to stretch more here or outer hip. It's not going to compute quite as linear. Lengthen through your spine. Press off of your left toes and then fold with a nice long spine with your hips square. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Now inhale here. Exhale from here, round your back body, press into your arms, and then from there you're pressing down so much that you can lift your right foot off of the floor. Inhale, set it down, lengthen through your spine. Exhale, press down into your hands, lift your foot up off of the floor. Inhale, press down, lengthen through your spine. You can use your fingertips too. Exhale, round, lift your foot up off of the floor. Inhale, lengthen through your spine. Exhale, round, lift your foot up off of the floor. One more time, inhale, long spine. Exhale, plant your hands, lift your foot up off of the floor. Tripod downward facing dog, right leg up and over. Bend your knees, stack it open. Stay here, flip it over, or side plank variation of your choice. Add to your practice as you want. Press down into your feet, lift your hips high. And downward facing dog, optional vinyasa. Full breath in here. We come back together to downward facing dog on your breath out. Step your left foot forward, low lunge, back knee down. Take your hands to your knee to start. A lot of people will feel a stretch into their quad, their hip flexor, with hands on your knee and lifting your chest high to the sky. Sometimes when we lift our arms up overhead, we're actually more likely to round forward because we're trying to reach our arms more than lift our chest. And instead, just focus on what works best for your body. If you did so on the other side and it works for you, you can lift your arms up overhead. Sit deeper into your front knee. I'm going to take you ways to go deeper if you need it. You can bring your left hand to your left hip, your left hand down to a little block or support, or bring your left hand all the way down to the ground, sit deeper into your left knee, and then start to turn your chest open. One more breath in. Stay and reach on your breath out. Inhale, left arm up to meet your right. And exhale, plant both hands, grab your blocks or your lifts if you need them. Tuck your back toes under and straighten both legs. Square your hips. Lengthen through your spine. Move your sit bones back and together. Move your outer left hip back and down towards your right heel. And bring a slight bit of just pocket of air to your right hip. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale. Exhale, fold. When you lift up halfway, you're giving yourself a mental reminder check of all the things that you already know. And then as you fold deeper, you take that with you and you find a little bit more depth into where you are. Now inhale, lengthen halfway. Press into your hands. On your exhale, round your spine, press into your arms. Lift your left foot up off of the floor. Inhale, set it down and lengthen. Exhale, press down, lift up. Inhale, set it down, lengthen. Exhale, press down, lift up. 2 more times. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more time. Inhale. And exhale. Tripod downward facing dog. Left leg up and over. Bend your knees, stack it open. Either stay here, flip your dog, or side plank variation of your choice. Whatever you did on the first side, you practice here. 1 more breath in. And exhale, downward facing dog. Optional vinyasa. Allow your breath to carry you through your movement, through your practice. Never forget about your breath. Full breath in. Stay for your breath out. Lift your heels, bend your knees. Inhale, float forward, lengthen halfway. And exhale, fold. Inhale, chair pose, Utkatasana. Sit back, sit low, reach your arms up overhead. Maybe take a step or 2 back so that way you have room in front of you to go into crow pose from here. Now, some similarities between crow pose and chair pose. You're squeezing your inner thighs together. As your hips go back, there's a slight hamstring curl of your heels toward your sit bones. There's a slight curl of your sit bones toward your heels. Now lengthen through your spine. Sit a little bit deeper. Inhale here. Exhale, just plant your hands down. Now keep the arches of your feet together. Bring your knees open. Walk your elbows down, your knees into your armpits. Shift forward. Squeeze arches of your feet together so much that you float up. Keep squeezing together. Keep pressing down into your arms. Draw your navel in. The center of your body is directly in between your hands. 1 more breath in. Exhale, chaturanga. You can step or you can float. Inhale, hard up. Exhale, hips back, downward facing dog. Zip your right foot forward to warrior 1. Back heel down. Inhale, rise. Exhale, interlace your hands at your low back. Inhale, lift your heart up. Exhale, humble warrior. Bring your right ribs to your right thigh. Squeeze the heels of your hands together. Reach your knuckles up and overhead. And then square your hips behind you. Your right sit bone back toward your left inner thigh. Keep wrapping your shoulder blades together. Sit a little bit deeper into your front knee. Lengthen through your spine here. And notice how close your armpit is to your right knee. Fancy that your body can already do it. Full breath in. Exhale, just plant your hands and hook your right armpit in front of your right knee as close as you can. Now lift your left heel, lift your right heel, bring your right knee to your right armpit, press down into the ground. Inhale, lower your right knee to your right wrist. Exhale, knee to armpit. Inhale, right knee, right wrist. Exhale, knee to armpit. 3, 4, last one. 5, tripod downward facing dog. Right leg up and over. This time, let's test our balance. Keep your right hand down. I like to walk myself in. You can bring your left fingers directly underneath you. You can tiptoe your left fingers back. And eventually, your left hand reaches up toward your right foot. I find it easiest to either gaze down or gaze back at my left ankle, but something that's going to be solid and grounding. It also helps to have the distance between your ankle and your wrist be somewhat equidistant. Slowly unwind, right foot down, optional vinyasa between sides. You do what you need to for your body. Hips go high and back. Full breath in. Exhale, step your left foot forward. Inhale, rise up, warrior 1, back heel down. Exhale, interlace your hands at your low back. So very simple flows today. Lengthen through your spine. And exhale, fold. And less worried about you learning like new poses because we're focusing on a transition. And the other part of that is focusing on one single transition, like if we were to build up to one single peak pose. We focus on that pose and all the other poses that we do, so we find similarities. And in that familiarity of our body, when we get to this transition that's otherwise difficult, challenging, we're so aware of ourselves, we're so aware of these postures that we've already done, that we trust ourselves. One more breath in. Exhale, plant your hands. Now hook your left armpit in front of your left knee. Lift your right heel. Bring your left heel off of the ground. Hug your knee to your armpit. Inhale, lower to your wrist. Exhale, back up to your armpit. Inhale, lower to your wrist. Exhale, back up to your armpit. Keep going. 3, 2, 1. Tripod downward facing dog. Hop your right foot in just a smidge. And then bring your right hand back and up toward your left foot. And it's okay to fall. It's okay to wobble, especially when it's challenging. We meet in downward facing dog, optional vinyasa if you want it. Full breath in. Exhale, bend your knees, gaze forward. Listen carefully to your shins land lightly. Good. Now, we want to add in a few more drills before we fully get into our transition, downward facing dog to crow. You're going to fold up the edges of your mat, and this is where you'll want your towel or your yoga blanket. So we're going to do 2 times, so back edge to front edge, and then middle to top. And then we're going to want to use the towel folded up maybe once or twice. If you have like a yoga blanket or something thicker, the thickness doesn't really matter. If you've done blanket core with me, you might notice some similarities into this. Another thing that I will note, if your hamstrings are tight and it's hard for you to place your hands down onto the ground, this is where your blocks, your little lift, a little bit of extra support is always going to help you out. And it's just going to make it more accessible for your body and where your body is working today. It's totally fine if that's different from somebody else. Now we're thinking about crow pose here. So start in what looks like the most crow-like shape that you can make with what you've got. With my hands on blocks, I'm not going to bring my knees all the way up to my armpits without my feet leaving the ground. That's totally fine. With my hands down onto the ground, I'm a little bit closer down, so I do have that availability. However, this is the version that I'm going to work with today. Now, we can start this one at a time. What you'll do is you'll take the blanket or a washcloth or whatever into one foot. Inhale, reach out. Exhale, knee to armpit, knee to elbow. Inhale, reach out. Exhale, knee to armpit, knee to elbow. You keep this other knee and your elbow, your armpit touching like crow pose. And then you can switch it over to the other side. I'm giving you the options currently. If you're feeling comfortable with that, you know that you have this in your practice, go ahead and go for the more challenging option, hands down onto the ground. You go from crow pose, straight back, back into crow. Straight back, back into crow. Most challenging option, you go from crow pose, straight back, chaturanga, back in, crow pose, you have to lift up, straight back, back in. We're all gonna pick one thing. We're gonna do it 20 times. So if you're doing one leg at a time, you have 10 on each side. If you're doing other options, try to hold on as long as you can. Starting in your crow or quasi-crow, press into your hands. Inhale, extend back. Exhale, knee to elbow. Inhale, extend back. Exhale, knee to elbow. Keep breathing. Keep going. If you have your hands lifted, keep your left heel lifted too. You're getting strong into your legs as well. Keep going. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Switch it to the other side. If you're doing one at a time, exhale on the way in. Inhale on the way out. Exhale on the way in. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Keep going. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job. And that's it. You can move your blanket off to the side, but don't unfold your mat all the way just yet. You can unfold it about halfway. Now, here's where we want to take either our block or our extra can of beans. You can actually unfold your mat all the way. So, with this can of beans, we're going to lift it in between our feet in crow pose. A few things that I will say is that a can of beans with socks on is really slippery. I was trying it beforehand. And that's a good extra challenge if you need it. You have to grip a little bit closer together. A block, something that's going to be a little bit thicker and wider for your foot to grip is going to be easier. I would highly not suggest something that's asymmetrical or kind of like not evenly balanced. Pick something that's going to be accessible. So from crow pose, knees into the backs of our armpits as close as we can. I kind of have to set my feet up with the can of beans already. If you have a block or something, you can pick it up on your way up. Now squeeze in, curl your heels to your sit bones. Inhale, tap. Exhale, curl in. Now you're going to go for 10. And I'm going to give you a couple of different options if you're working with where you're at today. Now, the first one is from your crow pose. If you're not comfortable lifting both feet up off of the ground, you're going to do one heel at a time, but you're just going to tap your toe down and then come back up. Tap toe down, come back up. Go for 10 on each side. Just your toe down, come back up. And then I want you to shift forward, squeeze the arches of your feet together, and just see what happens. Even if it's an inch off of the ground and you weren't getting an inch off of the ground yesterday, that's a lot of improvement. From nothing to a whole inch, that's amazing. So allow this to be challenging. Allow it to be hard, to be difficult, because it is. But know that your body is already doing all of this. Your body is capable. Planting down into your hands. If you're not already, I think some of you need a few more reps. Keep going. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job. Shake it out. Now, we want to talk about crow to downward facing dog. So we've been doing a lot of crow, back and forward from like a plank-ish pose, activating into our core. The thing about having it from downward facing dog that's really handy and super helpful is that your hips are high. Now, if I'm taking handstand to crow, what I'm thinking about is hips high, hips high, hips high, because that'll keep my pelvic floor lifting up, but it'll also help me kind of control the float and the natural progression on the way down. If I think lower my legs, it's going to go with the force of gravity already. If I think working against that as I lower down, as that's naturally going to happen, then I have a little bit more float, I have a little bit more lift, even as I lower. So that's the benefit of coming from downward facing dog. Our hips are already high, so we already have the lift here. Now what we need to add in is bending our elbows and the contraction of our knee to our armpit. Now, on your towel, on your blanket, whatever kind of slidey surface you have, press down into your arms, gaze forward. Come into a downward facing dog stance where as you shift forward, your wrists are directly underneath your shoulders. As you shift back, you're more in a downward facing dog, semi-comfortable, but you have to hold it there because it's sliding from underneath you because you're on a sliding surface. Gaze forward. Shift forward just to check. Now bend your knees, lift your hips. Shift forward, crow pose, slide in. Shoot it back, find downward facing dog. Inhale, gaze forward if you need to. Shift forward, double check. Bend your knees, lift your hips. Already right here, you have to squeeze your inner thighs to hold this shape. And then crow pose, slide it forward, shift it back. Give it 2 more tries. So if you need to, shift forward, check. Bend your knees, lift your hips, squeeze your inner thighs, crow pose. Shift it back. If that's not happening today and you're getting to here, that's awesome. That's super hard work. You're doing awesome. Try it one more time. Notice what's happening. Does one foot lag behind the other? Do your elbows bend too soon? Are your shoulders pressing or your hands pressing? What's kind of not clicking somewhere in your body? Because it doesn't even matter if it's your pinky finger. It might affect everything else. And your awareness of even that little pinky finger will make a big difference. Once you're done with that, you can place this all over to the side and unroll your mat. Now, one of the fun things about downward facing dog to crow is that as you're practicing it, you're also practicing for other transitions like downward facing dog to Ashtavrikrasana, or downward facing dog to even headstand is another transition that some people do. I don't personally love it, but it's a good transition or a good practice to work on downward facing dog to crow if you're going to be working toward downward facing dog to headstand kind of thing. So from downward facing dog, you are in your short downward facing dog, pressing down into your arms. Lift your hips, lift your heels. Bend your knees. Notice your thighs touch your ribs. That's just like crow pose. Now gaze forward, shift forward. Check your shoulders over your wrists. Bend your knees, lift your hips. Shift forward, try to land in crow. See what happens. If nothing happens, if you get even close, that's awesome. Great work. Shoot it back. Try again. Notice what went well with that first time. What did not click for your body. Take note. Maybe make a change, or just observe a second time. Shoot it back. Take note. Make a change, or observe. I was too far back on that one. My change that I'm going to make is gazing just a little bit more forward. You'll be surprised how much your gaze, your focus, makes a difference in your balance. That's not just on your mat. And then it works. Take it back one more time. Downward facing dog. Check it if you need to. Observe, make a change, whatever you need. Shake it out. Baddha Konasana. Soles of your feet together, knees go wide. Take this as a long Baddha Konasana so that way your feet are a little bit more forward in front of you rather than tighten in. And start to fold yourself down. Relax here as much as you can. If that's not an option, relax wherever is best for you. If that means a tighter Baddha Konasana, listen to your body. I like to find the place where I feel that kind of sticky sensation, and then I breathe there. Sometimes it's helpful to visualize, even if it's not like a realistic visualization. For me, and relaxing, learning how to let go of muscles, muscle tension, I start to imagine water melting off of ice. Because if you come in at ice and you chisel at it, you start to break it. But if you come in with a little bit of warmth, a little bit of heat, the ice doesn't crack, it starts to melt, it starts to drizzle. And the washing down of the water also cleans the surface, so it cleans itself. And for me, that's a visualization that allows me to go deeper inward, start to notice and observe. There is no change to be made, but my focus is direct, my focus is in one point. And I allow everything else around it to either be outside of the pattern or be a part of the pattern. And I just focus on what's in front of me, the pattern, the visualization. Slowly unwind, lift your chest, extend your legs out in front of you. Paschimottanasana, you can move your hips out of the way, you can bring your feet together apart, whatever you need. Reach up, reach long, think pancake belly for a second. Draw the back of your sacrum in, and then lift your chest up slightly, but bring your ribs down. Lift up through the crown of your head, move your sit bones back, and then fold down from there. And even when snow is melting, it'll start to uncover certain things like trees and rocks. Those trees and rocks have always been there, they always will be, whether a storm comes through or there's a sunny, beautiful day. And they thrive and grow in different scenarios. And we can either look at similarities inside of ourselves as part of our practice, or we can do anything else. But the option that's part of our practice is to look at what's outside of ourselves and see the mirror inside. Shake out your legs, slowly come up. Come around onto your shins. Bring your knees together. Virasana, hero's pose. So you want to bring your hands into the backs of your calves and move your calves out of the way. You can sit down. If it's comfortable for your knees to sit down all the way, you can start to move yourself back. However, if it's uncomfortable for your knees to sit down all the way, you have a few different options. You have a block or something, you can place that underneath your seat. You have a blanket or something to fold up a couple of times, like a pillow, something that's going to give a little bit higher cushioning. You can also sit onto that. Or you can bring your big toes to touch and your knees wide. Now this is different. This is, some people call it saddle pose. And with your big toes to touch and your knees wide, it's not going to get the same constriction into your knees that Virasana does, but it will give you a little bit more opening into your quadriceps, which is probably what you need in order to open your knees up for Virasana anyways. Don't go any further than your elbows down in saddle pose with your knees apart. Make sure that in Virasana your knees are together. Your inner thighs are touching. Your knees are squeezing together the entire time. And your feet are wrapping around your glutes. So you're giving yourself a little booty hug. Squeeze your knees together. And if you're seated, lift up, tuck your sit bones underneath you so that way you start to move your belly in, your sit bones underneath, and you start to get a deeper stretch into your quads and your hip flexors. Now, if you're comfortable here, your hips are down onto the ground. You can lay all the way back. Bikram teaches us to have an arch in our back. Not wrong. Different. You can bring the arch out, flatten your back down, and focus on the quadriceps stretch and hip flexor stretch. Now, if you do have your arms overhead, in this variation where we're focusing on the quads, you want to bring your ribs down as well, activating the deepest layer of your core. This is all prep work for inversions, floating, anything else that you want to do in your practice. You can either stay here or come up and take it into a headstand, or come into another variation that works best for your body of anything dolphin. You can just come out of this and lay on your ground. That's totally cool too. Headstand to child's pose, any inversions to child's pose. Virasana and saddle pose, slowly come up. You walk your hands forward and you want to straighten both legs at the same time. Don't pedal them out just yet. Allow the fresh new blood to just flush out everything in your knees, below your knees, through your hips. And come to a seat. Lay on back, hug your knees into your chest, give yourself a nice tight squeeze. A little rock side to side. Half happy baby. Plant your left foot down onto the ground and bring your right foot to happy baby shape. Now, if you're comfortable here, you can start to bring your right thigh closer down. And then you have a couple of different options as well. You can keep rocking your right thigh down until your left hip comes up, and then the work is trying to put your left hip down. It's not my favorite variation for me. I prefer to keep my right knee lifted and going the deepest that it can with the left hip down, and then extending the left leg, which gets a little bit more pull in opposite directions as well. If all of that is uncomfortable for you, you can keep your left foot planted. You can grab onto the back of your right knee. You can pull your knee in toward you, and you can breathe and hope for the best. Sometimes that's a really, really great option. If you're in between full grab onto foot and back of your knee, extend your right heel up and then even extend it a little bit past 90 and see if that makes a difference for you. Make a conscious note of whether or not you are lifting your left hip up and just be aware of it. Hug your right knee into your chest, give your right knee a nice tight squeeze. Grace. And then drop your right knee all the way over to the left. Open up your right arm and start to set your right shoulder blade back down. gaze to your right hand. Hi, Addie. Oh, thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks. Slowly come back around. Hold on, we're gonna have to take care of this for a second. Hold on, guys. Okay, come on. Thank you, Susie girl. Thank you. Switch it over to the other side. So your left foot will be in half happy baby and your right foot is planted down onto the ground, or your left thigh is down, your right hip is up, that is a conscious note, or your hips are squared down, your right thigh is down, or you can grab onto the back of your thigh, extend your left knee a little bit more than 90 degrees in order to get a deeper stretch here. You can work wherever works best for your body. Hug your left knee into your chest and drop your left knee all the way over to the right. Open up your left arm. Open your left chest, left side of your chest. Even if your left shoulder blade doesn't come down to the ground today, can you visualize that movement and that motion so that way one day in the future it clicks into your body? Take a deep full breath in and a full breath out. Slowly unwind, come back through to center. Hug both knees into your chest, give yourself a nice tight squeeze. Extend your legs straight up to the ceiling. Flex your feet so that way your heels go up, your toes come back. Set your sacrum down onto the ground, draw your navel in, extend your arms up overhead. Now, instead of pancake belly, just allow this to kind of float and relax. Can you keep the integrity of the movement, but start to just allow some things to relax? So your feet might not flex as much. Your knees might have a small bend. You'll find this place where your feet are weightless above your hips. You can breathe into your rib cage, but the rest of your abdominal wall is back by your organs, laying over them almost like a blanket. And then can you relax your elbows down to the ground so that your shoulders open up and some of the tension is released from your neck and your jaw. Allow this to feel easy for a moment. Find the enjoyment of it. And as you're ready, move into any position that feels most comfortable for your rest today. You can find a place in which your body can truly start to unwind, let go. And it's also the time into your practice that your body absorbs all the hard work that you just put in. You take muscle activation and you turn it into muscle memory. Certain things will start to dive deeper, even into the subconscious. You start to make mental notes. So whether or not today just felt like you were stepping onto your mat and moving through the motions, or you found some connection deeper to yourself in any way, I thank you so much for showing up, bringing your breath, your power, and your practice. And it is always with a deep and gracious heart from mine to yours. I say Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May all beings everywhere in the world be happy and free. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.